everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham Century Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for what is another painful episode to record as we review the Man City game last night is Mozza. How you doing, mate?
I've been better, I've been worse. Thank you very much. Hope you're both well.
Yeah, good to have you on. And Drew, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, I'm doing good.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, we're here to talk about the Man City game last night. An awful lot went wrong, an awful lot to moan about, an awful lot of repeating moans, I believe we're about to have. So, if you've listened to any of our podcasts after Fulham have thrown games away in the last 6 months, prepare to hear stuff you've heard before because last night was one of those games where everything we've been moaning about for ages just sort of happened again. Uh, it is really frustrating. Let's start though. We'll look at the team that played last night. Usually, I would ask AJ this one. Personally, I was quite happy with the squad that was picked. I was quite happy to see Bassi come back in. I thought Cuenca had a bit of a poor game on Saturday against Everton. Uh, Bit shocked maybe that Harry Wilson wasn't dropped, considering I thought he had a bit of a poor game against Everton. He had a bit of a poor game against City last night as well, so that'll be a conversation going forward. If we weren't playing Stoke this weekend, I think we'd be having a conversation about him being dropped, but it's Stoke, so it's a bit of a different one. All in all, a really frustrating game of football to watch if you're a Fulham fan. The first half, well, it was attack versus defence, really, wasn't it? And before we conceded, didn't even look like we were remotely in the game. Drew, that first sort of 20 minutes of the game, we just looked like we come out with the mindset of just try hold on for as long as we can before City score. It's probably why we don't ever win at Man City because it's a really bad mentality to have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting lineup. It was Castagna. I was surprised was still in the team. To tell you the truth, because he really struggled against Everton. But I was watching the game and I just kept staring at my phone, hoping someone would ring me. So I had a reason, to stare at my phone because staring at the TV screen was just painful. We just flat. It wasn't even flat. I mean, Man City, but and they had Rodri back, but I mean, they didn't even look like they had to try. They really didn't look like they had to try, and a lot of Fulham fans, especially some of the bigger accounts, echoed the same thing. Losing's one thing, but not losing when you don't look like you've been in a game, and that's that. It was just a procession. There wasn't a Fulham fan that was backing Fulham to win. Maybe the team picked up on that, but I don't know. It was just a nothing game, and it was just really really disappointing.
Ultimately, right, City had 5 or 6 opportunities to score before they actually did. It's really frustrating how their first goal comes around. Sandberg with quite possibly one of the worst attempted heading clearances I've ever seen in my life, considering it goes straight to an attacking player who's 4 foot in front of him. Semenya was probably one of the easiest goals he's ever scored against Fulham, and that's saying something because he scored quite a few. Uh, it's really frustrating the way that we conceded there, and the problem is it's not the first time this season where we're all sat here going, we have just been the architects of our own downfall, and some absolutely shambolic defending has led to us conceding the goal. The second goal comes about after some really poor midfield play. Some and then they break quickly, and O'Reilly scores a really good finish by O'Reilly. And the third goal comes around through some really poor midfield play and some really poor defending. And then Haaland does what Haaland does, basically passes the ball in the back of the net because Leno from distance is absolute wank. There's nothing more we can say, really, other than 3-0 down at half time, fully deserved to be 3-0 down at half time. Absolutely diabolical for them, really. Mozza, we've had this conversation about mentality before going into games and the way that we play against the bigger teams, in particularly in this league. Now, one of the weird things is whenever we play against anybody else who's in, the big six, right? I always feel that we are up for the game. But whenever we play Man City, we are almost always beaten before we're on the pitch. And it doesn't help that then leads to negative viewpoints from us fans who think we're beaten before we even start. But you don't expect that from the players, right? And I think realistically, yesterday we saw that. It almost looked like we were just resigned to losing the game before it even kicked off.
Yeah, well, AJ and I touched on this in the preview, so I'm not going to tread over old ground. But I agree with you. Yeah, we normally seem to take a fight to one of these top six teams, especially when we've just had a run and poor form as well, which we have had. So, yeah, as we've discussed, I wasn't expecting 3 points. I thought we might have gone in with it with a mindset, mentality of at least coming away with a draw. But yeah, I mean, what do you put it down to? You can make every excuse under the sun. I mean, the conditions were woeful. If you saw how wet that was, I mean, but that shouldn't affect the mentality really. But I suppose when we've travelled from London up to Manchester, which isn't long, we do long journeys. Everyone does, every team does. Again, that shouldn't really be a part of it. So I'm literally clutching at straws here, like trying to work out why is it because it's a midweek game. Are we resigned to the fact that it's just Man City and they're playing for something? Not to say that we aren't, because I did discuss with AJ as well. I don't think we are in danger necessarily of a relegation battle, but I mean, never say never. We might be. It's definitely, as he said himself, a mid-table affair. And you look at the points now where we are, just trying to close the gap and try and remain in the top half. I mean, it's getting further and further away from us. And we've been lucky with some results that we've had over the AFCON period where we lost 3 of our players. But since they've come back, you'd think we'd be on even better form, and it seems to have all gone to pot. And I can't put my finger on it, why that is. So is it because maybe the players aren't confident in what the future holds for Marco Silva and he's not committed to a new contract yet or anything at all? Who knows? That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, we can review the second half of the game in 10 seconds. Nothing happened. Fulham offer absolutely nothing. Man City shut up shop, make a couple of subs nice and early, take off their big guns and bring on their slightly less bigger guns. And Fulham offer nothing. Fulham make 6 like-for-like substitutions. We don't change tactics. We don't change tact. We don't change anything. Man City strolled away with a 3-0 victory. That's it, really, in terms of a game review. Obviously, there are a couple of things that have happened in the game that I want to cover, that we should cover. First one being 2 ridiculous calls by VAR. One goes massively in our favour, and one goes against us massively. The first one being Kenny Tete quite clearly pulling Semenya's hair. It's a frustrating one because VAR have obviously deemed that there wasn't clear and obvious evidence to prove that he pulled his hair, but I think a blind man can see that he's pulled Semenya's hair. Whether or not he's done it on purpose or not, maybe the only bit that they could throw some contention in because he's not looking at him at the time. He sort of just got his arm on the back of his shirt, and then he could think he's pulling the back of his shirt slightly, and he's not. He's actually got his hair, whatever. I think we got away with one there in terms of it. Drew, your view on it? It's stupid, bare minimum by Tete. We're 3-0 down at that point. Could have potentially lost the player. Looking at conceding the penalty as well. It's proper suicidal defending, right?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you say he wasn't looking at him, but yeah, I mean, he's got so much hair. You don't need to look, I mean, and talking about clear and obvious, you can see Semenya being pulled back. If VAR had called the referee over, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid, and it would have been in keeping with the performance of the team. Brain dead. Lack of discipline. lack of professionalism, and let's be honest, we got away with one. I know our experiences with VAR have generally been negative, and we've been on the receiving end um, of most adverse decisions, but we got away with one there. I mean, it's just stupid. You know, I mean, you can criticize Silva for all sorts of things, but he cannot legislate for stupid football. You know, that's that really.
Yeah, look, I think Kenny Tete's got more than got away with one. To be honest with you, I've had a lot of conversation with Man City fans today, mainly around the second challenge that we're about to talk about, which is the one that's sort of taken the news today because they seem to be defending one because of the other, and quite frankly, they're both diabolical decisions by the referee. The second one is Phil Foden absolutely raking Calvin Bassey's Achilles. Um, he's gone for one foot, completely missed it, and got the other. Studs up down the back of someone's foot. If it wasn't a Man City player, that's a sending off. And people think that that's just people being a bit like, moany about Man City. But we've seen it multiple times this season where players have made no real attempt to win a ball, rake someone's ankles, and that's a sending off. Tottenham had it on the weekend. We saw it last year when Tom Kenny was sent off against Tottenham away for the exact same challenge. It's just a case of he's miles behind play. He's made a challenge he shouldn't be making. And quite frankly, if it wasn't an England player and a Man City player, you'd be 100% sure that you're going to get sent off for it. And it's ridiculous that he hasn't. Don't get me wrong, it would have made absolutely no impact on the result whatsoever. Because as what we're about to talk about, Fulham didn't take any impetus, even when we sort of started going on the front foot in the game in the second half yesterday. Yeah, it's a diabolical decision, and it's one of those ones where all we want as fans is a bit of consistency in refereeing, right? And this is none there. It's just ridiculous, and it's frustrating. And I don't usually like to talk about individual like tackles and stuff that happen in games, but how it's been deemed that the yellow card was acceptable for that is beyond me. And I know for a fact we're going to see in the next couple of weeks, someone will get sent off for something way less than that, and it'll just rear its head as a conversation piece. And quite frankly, what's annoying is we have had too many of these at Man City away. Goals being given them when players clearly obstructing goalkeepers in offside positions, penalties given in the last minute because someone screamed loudly as they've slightly been touched, and it's just frustrating because it mars a game. Don't get me wrong, as I say, 3-0 down, Man City are more than comfortable in the game. It wasn't changing last night's result, but it's just frustrating that these things go against us often. And again, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been 10 versus 10 at the end of the game last night. Kenny Tete should not have been on the pitch for what he did. And I am more than angry about the stupidity that Kenny Tete showed during the game. Let's talk about the main talking point, though, in the second half. And it's one that we've made many, many times over the last couple of weeks. But I think we've got a bit of time to actually discuss it here. And that is Marco Silva reading the game, changing the game, and making substitutions and not like for like. We made 6 substitutions last night in the game. They were, you look at them in no particular order and when they were actually made, right? Well, we made a triple substitution where Josh King came on for Smith Rowe. That's like for like. Chukwueze for Kevin came on. That's like for like. Raul Jimenez came on for Rodrigo Muniz. Sorry, came on for Raul Jimenez. Like for like. We then play another 12 minutes. We take off Wilson and bring on Oscar Bob, like for like, and then bring off Sanderberg and bring on Harrison Reed, like for like. You're 3-0 down in a game of football. You're not losing anything by throwing caution to the wind a little bit, to maybe get back into it. To make that many like for like substitutions, have no plan B, is beyond frustrating. Right? Mozza, we spoke about it loads. And, me and you had this very similar conversation during the Everton game on Saturday because we were sat next to each other. It's really frustrating that Marco Silva is so passive with his substitutions. He's finally got a bench where we got players available to him, and yet he's still not being aggressive when he needs to be. How do you feel about the situation there? Because it makes me angry that he has opportunities to change stuff and just doesn't.
Yeah, well, if you're 3-0 down at half time, I mean, I think what have we only seen it 2 or 3 times in Marco Silva's career at Fulham, Premier League games or even all games. I'm not too sure stats wise, but it's very few that he does half-time subs. But it's at the point now where that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that he will make subs by the 60th something minute, whether it be triple, whether it be like for like. But we're talking about like for like subs there. I mean, you look at the bench as well. I mean, what differences really can you make that opposes the starting lineup? Drew, you mentioned Castagna earlier. Sorry, I'm not trying to pick you up on it, but I don't know if he did he play last night? Or because I don't seem to
No.
remember
Tete
him.
played last night.
Yeah,
Tete,
you
did I
just meant
say sorry?
you meant he was, I didn't know if you meant he was just on the bench, but at least he's still on the bench. But I mean, you look at who we did have available. I mean, it's a lot of defensive choices anyway. Like, but then again, it goes back full circle to what are our options in the squad. Really, yeah. I mean, it's a head scratcher again. Let me ask you both. I mean, what would you have changed at half time there? Because I can't really think about what difference we could make apart from maybe bringing Robinson on, maybe pushing Sess up or vice versa. Um, yeah, it's
You change formation, mate. You change
yeah,
formation. You play 2 up front. You know, you've got Muniz on the bench who's a striker. You've got Oscar Bob on the bench who can play as a winger or as a striker. You know, you've got Chukwueze who's on the pitch who has experience of playing as a striker. You know, you change something up in order to give yourself something up top. You know, Raul Jimenez takes an awful lot of flack by Fulham fans, right? And I think it's unfair because the man does so much running for the team that he shouldn't have to do. He shouldn't have to do it. Most strikers that are 34 years old are played as a striking two because they have a younger guy to do all the running for them and they just do all the finishing, right? That's when you get to that age, that's what you're credited with, traditionally anyway, right? He's doing so much running off the ball that it's leaving so much work on the attacking midfielder. You know, you look at Emma Smith Rowe over the last couple of weeks. He's been brilliant, right? But last night he was not in the game, barring one opportunity where the ball came across the pitch and he just couldn't get his little legs on the end of it. He didn't do anything in the game, and it's not. But that's I'm not necessarily blaming him. It was so back against the wall. It's no real shock, right? You look at Harry Wilson. Harry Wilson's had a couple of really mediocre games. You know, he does this. We see this with Harry Wilson. He goes through purple patches where he's really good and then sort of mediocre. You make a change in formation. You change something, right? You throw caution to the wind because if you're losing 3-0, you might as well lose 5-0, but have a go. Like you have a go. Give the fans something to go. Actually, there's still something here because all we actually saw in the second half yesterday was Man City completely shut up shop and go, "That's us done." And we went, "Okay, we'll just sort of pass the ball around and hopefully get the ball at the edge of your box and do something," which we couldn't do. You know, barring Donnarumma maybe making 1 or 2 saves, which were at most sort of speculative opportunities by us, we offered nothing. And the fact that Marco Silva, yet again, no plan B, like for like substitutions, it's infuriating because it worries you for when maybe later on in the season a game might be really, really important. Drew, we often have this conversation, right, about his subs and stuff. What would you have done last night to maybe just make a change in what we were seeing?
I don't think it had anything to do with subs yesterday or in-game adjustments. Silva didn't have his team ready from the off. We went 3-0 down and 5-1 down at the Cottage. And when it got to 3-0 at the Cottage in the reverse fixture, I said to my friend at the time, City of Old would shut up shop here and we wouldn't get back into the game. But they weren't City of Old. And in that game, Silva made adjustments that, quite frankly, if that game had gone on for another 10 minutes longer, we'd have probably won. This game, it just felt the die was cast from minute one. So whatever Silva did whatever impact he had was before a ball was kicked, because we just came out and we just weren't at it. We weren't at it. You mentioned the first goal with Berge. He was like he was actually trying to get out of the way of the ball. And the third goal with Haaland, I don't know how it felt to anyone watching, but for me, it was like time stood still. He seemed to have so much time. And, you know, like I said at the top, and sorry about the Castagna mistake, you're right, Mozza. But like I said at the top, losing, look, no one expects to lose to, no one expects to go to the Etihad and win comfortably. But the least we can expect is effort, commitment, hustle. You know, I can't see Everton going there and just laying down. Can't see Brentford going there and just laying down. So for me, it wasn't about in-game adjustments, because whatever setup, whatever mentality, whatever game plan we'd been set out with, unless the team literally decided, look, well, Silva doesn't care because, you know, he's not going to be here, so why should we? The die was cast from the kickoff, and everything else from that point, in my view, was just follow through. It was just follow through. You could have gone 3 at the back. You could have gone 4-4-2. But if you're not prepared to match effort and get amongst them, what are we even talking about here? City came off at half time looking like they hadn't been in a game. You know, they didn't have to work for those 3 goals. They didn't have to work for anything. And that's the most disappointing part. And when you start a game like that, yeah, it's really difficult. Really difficult to change the narrative. So, I mean, you're quite right. The substitutes, they didn't make a difference, but then they were just a continuation of everything that had gone before. This is not like it was against Everton, when we were clearly on top in the first half, and in the second half, you know, danger was imminent, and everyone could see changes need to be made. Last night, you could have changed the whole 11. The die had been cast from the word go, because we just, for whatever reason, didn't compete. That's, you know, and I don't know, because I was looking at Silva last night when they did close-ups to him, and he just looked like he'd almost like resigned, you know, resigned himself to the outcome. That's how it felt. So I'm you know, I'm not going to criticize the substitutes or criticize the changes, because I think defeat had been priced in before we kicked the ball, and that's what's the most disappointing.
Yeah, I think realistically, we look at this and we're coming away for the second game in a row saying the same thing, right? Where you can get beat because the team you're playing against are better than you. You can get beat because you get outclassed, but it's not acceptable to get beat because you're out efforted, like the amount of effort that Man City didn't even bother to put in, but still outclassed us, is one thing. But to look like we did the same thing over and over again. We're so sloppy on the ball. And I said it when we played against Everton on Saturday. We do that against Man City during the week, we're going to lose by 9 goals, right? Because the effort and the sloppiness is just catastrophic.
Let's be
And we
clear,
did it
Ash.
again.
You were right. You were right. The only reason City didn't score more goals is because City didn't want to. They shut up shop. They just stopped. They kept Fulham at arm's length because they knew Fulham were no threat, and they just saw out the rest of the game.
You know, they played the second half like it was a training exercise. Like, and we played the second half like we didn't have a clue. And I think that's the problem. I think that, you know, none of us are angry here that we haven't beat Man City at a game of football. None of us expected to win the game. What I'm angry about is the lack of effort, the lack of nous, the lack of want, the lack of desire. And in defence, you know, the lack of concentration. It's really, really frustrating that we are, what, 2/3 into this season now, and we're having the same conversation that we've been having since week 2 about goals that we concede and the mindset and stuff that goes in. I know there's people going to be sitting there going, but you know, you weren't moaning when we were winning. We won like 4 games in a row or whatever. We had that great run between December and January, but yeah, we were, because we got so fortunately lucky during that time period that that we got away with so many results that because the opposition were really poor on the day, or we had one chance and we took it. I think realistically, there's going to be some discussions about Marco Silva coming up, and there's an awful lot about everyone in the media is talking about, oh, Fulham don't want to lose Marco Silva because of the job Marco Silva's done, but I think there has to be a frank conversation about, has maybe Marco Silva taken Fulham as far as Marco Silva can take Fulham, because there's a clear mentality issue here, and it's strange because we don't have this mentality when we play against Chelsea. We don't have this mentality when we play against Liverpool. We don't have this mentality when we play against Man United, even, right? Even though those are games we don't expect to win. But whenever we play against Arsenal and whenever we play against Man City, it's like we are confined to losing the game before the game is even played. And it's worse when it's Man City, because we have this long historical run of 20 games now where we haven't got anything out of the games from them. And yes, there's been games there where we've been absolutely done in by VAR and stuff. And it's sometimes it gets on top of you that you just feel like you're going to lose before you even kick off. But if that's the case, you still got to fight for it. You still got to put some game in. You use Brentford as a benchmark for it. Brentford go into these games, and even if they lose, they put a performance in. Whereas we often just look like we're just turning up because it's in the fixture list and we have to be there. And it's not good enough. And I feel sorry for any fan who went last night and watched it, because it's turgid and it's boring and it's rubbish, and it's not the effort that you expect from a Fulham team. We know we're not the best team in the league, but it doesn't. What one thing we do expect is there to be effort from the players that are playing. And I didn't see it last night. I didn't see much at all last night of anyone who looked like they even wanted to be on the pitch, let alone deserve to be on the pitch. And that's the frustrating thing about it. Lads, we would normally give a man of the match here, but it's almost impossible to. I don't really think anyone really deserves to be credited as a man of the match for Fulham last night. So we're not going to. I thank you guys for joining me for this Man City review. Really frustrating game to watch, as we say. We'll be back again this afternoon with our preview to the Stoke FA Cup game coming up on Sunday. So come and join us for that. Hopefully, we can be a bit more positive and talk about what potentially could be a rotated Fulham squad. Not really much more to say other than enjoy your Friday mornings. We'll speak to you later on, and come on, you Whites.